Dear learners, you are most welcome to our very first lesson on reproduction. I would like to first introduce myself to you. This is Kiseka Michael, a teacher of Our Lady of Africa, SS in Mukono, and we are going to be uploading a series of episodes. This is our episode 1 on topic reproduction. I'll remind you to subscribe to my YouTube channel to be accessing these videos such that we can ease the learning and teaching process all together. So reproduction, as we are seeing here, we are going to be looking at a course outline in this episode 1. In this episode, I'm going to be handling the definitions, the basic definitions of reproduction. We are going to look at the types of reproduction. We are going to look at the forms of asexual reproduction, how different organisms can reproduce by asexual means. We are going to look at the different organs for vegetative propagation. We are going to compare both sexual and asexual reproduction as types of reproduction. We are going to look at the advantages and disadvantages of using both sexual and asexual reproduction as follows. So to begin with is reproduction, the definition of reproduction. Here we are looking at formation or production of a new generation of individuals of the same species. Remember that for organisms to reproduce, they must be from the same species, and that's how they will be able to interbreed and produce viable offsprings. So introduction or formation of a new generation is all what we are going to look at when it comes to the definition of reproduction. Within this process, we are going to involve transmission of genetic material from one generation to another. So we shall see the role of natural selection in this kind of topic, because it will determine which organisms are to pass on the genes to from one generation to another. We are going to look at how organisms can be able to survive over long periods of time, even when death occurs, because once the old ones die, the new ones should continue to pass on their genes to the next generation, such that the lineage of that particular species can keep going. So within our topic, we shall begin with the significances why organisms should reproduce. As you see in our picture there, different organisms are carrying out what we call mating, and that process increases genetic variety. Therefore, organisms can adapt to the environment. Number 2, the process of reproduction increases ability to withstand harsh environmental conditions because of the resistant stages within the life cycles of different organisms during reproduction. For example, formation of cysts in things like tapeworms, among others. Some organisms, for example the fungi in plants, can form spores or seeds or larvae in insects, and these ones are easily dispersed to reduce intraspecific competition. We all know that when you take a case study of a butterfly, the adult butterfly flies, but its larvae, which is called a caterpillar, just moves onto its legs. Both organisms, however much they are of the same species, feed on different food, so that one will reduce the intraspecific competition that will exist in the organisms themselves. So among the types of reproduction, we are going to look at one at a time and elaborate it, talking about its advantages and disadvantages. And the first form of reproduction is asexual reproduction. In this one, only a single organism is involved and there is no fusion of gametes. Because of that, the offsprings generated are going to be genetically identical to the parent, and they are always in large numbers. That's very unique of asexual reproduction. The basis of this reproduction is by mitosis. That's why we get identical daughter cells, and this one is developed into individuals which are also identical. This process has a number of advantages, and among them we have only one parent being involved, and that one saves energy and time. You don't have to search for mates, you don't have to produce gametes which could be wasted, so you end up saving your energy and time. The offsprings produced are genetically identical, therefore the successful gene combinations are retained. If a parent had good characteristics, even those characteristics are going to be maintained within the offspring. There will be a dispersal because of the light structures used in reproduction. For example, the asexual spores produced in mucus. There will be rapid multiplication of offsprings because this mode of reproduction produces a large number of organisms, and because of that it will make our organisms easily colonize new areas because of their rapid multiplication. Some of the disadvantages: whenever we have no or minimal genetic variation among offsprings, it is disadvantageous because in case of any climatic change, the entire organisms might be wiped out of the population. There will be wastage of energy and materials used in formation of reproductive structures like asexual spores, which might even fail to germinate or fail to find a suitable place where to germinate. Because of the rapid multiplication, there will be overcrowding in one area, and this one also increases competition among organisms or of offsprings themselves. For example, in the Spirogyra, very many Spirogyra strands will be overcrowded in a given area, and because of that we shall have such a kind of case. There will be exhaustion of nutrients. You know, where you are abundant in nature, you extract much nutrients, so the exhaustion will lead to some organisms dying because they have nothing to eat. We've said that there is minimal genetic variation, and if genetic variation arises during asexual reproduction, then the causes of that kind of variation could be mutation. These are sudden changes in the structure of the genome. It could be a sudden change in the structure of the chromosome, the arrangement of the base sequence, among others, or the effect of the environment, how the environment has worked on the genotype, and that one introduces new varieties within a population. In sexual reproduction, we look at fusion of gametes to form a zygote, and this zygote will eventually develop into a new organism. This fusion can take place in a single organism if that organism is hermaphroditic, or it can take place between two organisms, one which is a female and one which is a male, and these two will bring the gametes together such that fusion takes place normally in the female organism. So because of that, this process basically evolves on meiosis, and that one causes genetic variation among the offsprings produced. That's why we shall have genetic variation, or the organisms formed will be differing. Advantages of this kind of reproduction include genetic variation, which is a raw material for natural selection, and that one enhances evolution. Two are the more adaptable offsprings which are produced, and that increases chances of survival of a particular organism. It allows evolution of new species because of permission of natural selection to take place on the different varieties. Among the disadvantages this mode of reproduction has, it is very slow. You can take an example of an elephant, which has a gestation period of around 2 years. So if an elephant is to produce one offspring every after 2 years and it has to breastfeed it, it will take around 4 years before it another conception. And because of that, this process is very, very slow compared to Spirogyra, which just splits and forms very many offsprings per unit time. It involves wastage of energy. Remember, you make very many of gametes, and not all these gametes are used in fertilization. Only one sperm will fertilize the ovum. So because of that, large amounts of energy are wasted due to unutilized gametes. Wastage of time during courtship and mating. You've seen it quite very common in human beings, where a human being has to plead for the female organism so as to courtship and eventually mate. And so when we go into a comparison between these two modes of reproduction, when we request you colleagues to compare, look at both similarities and differences. Among the similarities, both involve production of offsprings, parent organisms, both involve means of cell division. It can be mitosis or meiosis depending on which kind of reproduction we are having, transmission of genetic material from one organism called the parent organism to the offspring, among others. And with differences, I have categorized them in form of a table. On my left hand side I have asexual reproduction, on my right hand side I have sexual reproduction. As you see in my table, asexual reproduction involves only one parent organism. The other can involve usually 2 parent organisms, where one, it should be hermaphroditic. No gametes are produced, the other side gametes are produced. Offsprings identical to the parent in asexual, offsprings not identical to the parent in sexual reproduction. Rapid production of large numbers of offsprings in asexual, but slow increase in number of offsprings when it comes to sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is very common in plants, simple animals, microorganisms, and absent in complex animals like we, the human beings. However, sexual reproduction occurs in almost all the plants and animal species. We normally use sexual reproduction. Decrease in hybrid vigor when it comes to asexual, but hybrid vigor is high when we go to the other side of sexual reproduction. So because of that, it gives us a basic introduction on our topic reproduction, and that will sum up episode 1. As we conclude today, in my second episode I will handle the different forms of asexual reproduction and we shall elaborate more on them. I would request you to keep on following me on my YouTube channel and keep subscribing on all my videos so that we can make this process an easy one in future. I wish you all the best in this journey.